When I was a kid, I was really into Star Wars. In particular, I was a big fan of um, the prequels because I was a kid in the 2000s and the prequels were the most new thing. More importantly, if you're to play this game, it's number one, right? So I I grew up watching Star Wars and playing the Lego Star Wars games. That was my primary interaction with Star Wars. I watched a little bit of Clone Wars on the TV. I watched a little bit of the old Clone Wars, like the 2D animated one. I watched that on. I had the DVD, which may have been pirated, but I did watch it on DVD. And yeah, I was a big fan of Star Wars, big fan of the prequels, and when I eventually grew up, around 16, 17 years old, I was like, Star Wars, I haven't really watched that recently. And so I'm like, okay, what's the best way to, experience these movies? Because of course you have re-releases and stuff, and that's kind of an important point to consider when you're talking about like the original trilogy, because they've added a bunch of like CG and stuff that wasn't in the original. And so like, okay, I could watch the Blu-ray version that was released like recently, the most recent remasters of the movies. But everyone on the internet is telling me you don't want to do that. You really want to watch the version, with all of that stuff, not included, with all of the like CG and the changes, McClunky. Get rid of all of that stuff. And I'm like, okay, if I want to watch the original trilogy, I guess I have to watch it without the added bits. And so I found this, and I can't remember what it's called for the life of me, but someone more informed on Star Wars will know. Um, but it's just like a fan-made version of the original trilogy that painstakingly, to be fair, to give some credit where it's due, painstakingly remasters these scenes without the CGI. And so I watched this version, and it was Star Wars. I really don't think watching it was any better or worse of an experience than if I were to just watch the remastered official versions. Because to be honest, it's just like it's Star Wars. It's whatever. But I did enjoy watching it, and I had fun watching the original trilogy. And I think I had a newfound appreciation for these movies that, as a kid, were the less interesting movies to me. One thing that I'm a huge fan of in Star Wars in general is the swordplay and the choreography of the fights. And it's a lot less impressive in the original trilogy compared to pretty much just Revenge of the Sith. But there are other, movies. Um, and so, you know, I I enjoyed it more, as an adult than I had as a kid. As a kid, it's like, yeah, the original trilogy, it's Star Wars, and Star Wars is cool, but I mean, at the same time, the part that appealed to me about Star Wars was the action. So I really don't care as much for the original trilogy, except for the parts where they're flying the ships around. But the swordplay, I mean, you've seen Obi-Wan and Vader, right? Like, it's not anything to be excited about necessarily. So rewatching it as an adult and being able to appreciate some of the drama aspects, the character stuff, that's pretty good. And I quite liked liked oh, I've fallen. I quite liked the original trilogy. I didn't think Return of the Jedi was as good though. I remember watching, I don't know why every time I go here it seems to lag. I remember watching Return of the Jedi and being like, yeah, this is okay. This is not as good as Empire Strikes Back. But it's been long enough since I watched either of those movies, because it was a little bit after the first lockdown, still confidently, you know, in the pandemic. So like 2020 probably. So it would have been around like September or something. They first lifted the like restrictions, but it's still definitely like COVID-y. And hey, you know, I don't like to define every year of my life by its relation to the COVID pandemic. But it's kind of hard not to. It's kind of hard to not to. It was a pretty big deal. Honestly, still a pretty big deal. But yeah, original trilogy, I'm a fan. Empire Strikes Back, one of my favorite Star Wars movies, and like honestly one of my favorite movies. I don't watch a lot of movies. I've seen a fair few movies, but I prefer to watch TV. I don't know why. I would watch 3 hours of TV before I watch 2 hours of a movie, and I don't know why. I find it hard to sit down and watch a movie. I guess it's just like the commitment, like, I don't know. I never stop in the middle of a movie, but I will stop at the end of an episode of a TV show. So I guess it's easier from that perspective to commit to watching parts of a TV show versus parts of a movie. But yeah, it is a thing. I don't watch as many movies as some other people. But I'm not like anti-movie. Empire Strikes Back is really good. Where I was going next with this is I also watched the prequels, which, you know, being the age that I am now, being a kid when I watched the movies, because they were like the most recent Star Wars thing, I had more of a nostalgia for these movies, and I remembered the characters and stuff a lot better. And I remember watching Phantom Menace and being like, you know what, I don't get the hate, because, you know, Phantom Menace, if what you like from Star Wars is the action scenes, they've got Darth Maul, they've got pod racing. People joke about pod racing. It's like an awesome action scene, right? Like, am I wrong? What's not to love? Phantom Menace is by far not a perfect movie, but compared to Attack of the Clones, which is one of the worst movies I've ever watched, I don't see what all the hate is about Phantom Menace. And I do think that Attack of the Clones is absolutely unredeemable. It's so bad. Anakin's this like weird, creepy kid. Nothing happens, and it's all like politics, and yeah. Attack of the Clones is very boring, and I don't like it, and I'm not gonna watch it ever again. Probably. I don't see myself ever watching it again. And so yeah, I watched Revenge of the Sith, and it's just as good as I remembered, which is to say, awesome movie. I don't know what else to say. Revenge of the Sith was a really fun movie. It has a lot of cool action scenes, and I really enjoy it. Which, like, the action is the main thing I'm there for with Star Wars, to be honest. And then, so I watched all of these in the same day, by the way. I watched 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. I know some people say you should watch, what is it? 4, 5, 2, 3, 6. I'm not doing that shit. I watched 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and had a lot of fun with that. Had a lot of fun with those movies. And then I moved on to the sequels. So I started watching Force Awakens is the first one, I think. Started watching Force Awakens, and I actually liked it. I know there's a lot of hate about the sequels and how they're not as good as the prequels or the original trilogy. But to be honest, Force Awakens, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty good movie. People have complained that, oh, it's just like a rehash of A New Hope. It's like the same movie as A New Hope. I liked A New Hope, so I didn't really mind that. I do agree that the movies are pretty similar, but I like A New Hope, so I'm not complaining. Yeah, I don't know why the game's lagging so much. Anyway, and then I watched The Last Jedi, and I'll be honest, The Last Jedi sucks. It's really boring. It's just a really boring movie. I don't want to sound like a child. I don't want to sound like, oh, I'm only watching the movies for the action scenes and I don't care about anything else, because that's not entirely true. But there's a big portion of me that was just extremely bored trying to sit through The Last Jedi. I thought it was a really boring movie, to be honest. And so I really don't like The Last Jedi. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to sleep now, because I've watched 8 movies back to back, and this last one was pretty crap. So I'm just gonna go to bed, and I'll watch what is the last one called? The Last Jedi's the 8th movie, and the 9th movie is called... I'm gonna look it up. I don't remember what the 9th movie's called. Hold on. I need to find out what Star Wars Episode 9. Rise of Skywalker. Okay, so I'm watching Rise of Skywalker, and I'm like, you know what, this movie's fine. I have no more complicated thoughts on Rise of Skywalker, because I haven't watched it recently enough to actually remember much about it. But I thought Rise of Skywalker was fine. I much preferred it to The Last Jedi, and I know that a lot of people hated... Rise of Skywalker. To be honest, it wasn't a fantastic movie, but it definitely was better than this is really disorienting. Moving around with this thing is really disorienting. What was I saying? Yeah, Rise of Skywalker. I haven't seen it recently. I thought it was okay. It definitely wasn't a perfect movie, but like entertaining enough. It's Star Wars. None of them are that good, other than like, you know, Empire Strikes Back, A New Hope. Those movies are pretty damn good, but yeah, I have to feel like none of them are that good. Phantom Menace is also the one with the Colosseum, right? Am I remembering that wrong? If it is, then that's just a further argument towards how good the movie is, because I feel like that's pretty entertaining. Is that the same movie? I don't think that's the same movie. Is Attack of the Clones the one with the Colosseum? I don't remember these movies well enough, clearly. Anyway, I'll see you. That was the Star Wars video. Happy May the 4th. If you want my review of the other movies, I have not seen them. I didn't watch Solo. I didn't watch Rogue One. I'm probably going to at some point, but yeah.